Hello, everyone. I hope that lunch was great. I am Isabel Flower. I am the executive editor of Deem. And something that I'm actually very excited to share with you all is that today is the first time that you can experience our 5th print issue in person for sale. It is for sale in the gift shop. And I think that this is our most ambitious issue yet, if only because we have taken on in its pages, I think the greatest, most significant design challenge that humankind has ever faced, which is how we will respond to the climate crisis. And something that we really try to do with Deem is to approach any topic that we're dealing with unexpected and sort of out-of-the-box perspective. So I'm very excited to introduce one of our contributors to issue 5's pages, Ami Mehta, who is a technologist, artist, and teacher who's going to speak to you now for our first expansive practice presentation about how we can use video games as a way and an outlet of thinking through an uncertain future. So thank you and welcome, Ami.
Hello. Just gonna get set up here. Okay. All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you all had a nice lunch. And thank you for the warm welcome, Isabel. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here today. I'm just feeling so inspired by all the energy in this room, all the speakers from this morning. And I want to start by thanking Deem Journal and the MCA Chicago for organizing this symposium and inviting me to speak at this very magical gathering. My name is Ami Mehta, and I'm a creative technologist, artist, and educator. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how video games can inspire positive change in a world facing uncertain futures. How do we reconcile the creation of artificial worlds with the crises of our reality? Now, I have to admit that dignity is often not the first word that comes to mind when one thinks of game design or video games. Usually, we associate games with concepts like simulation, distraction, escapism. However, I believe that dignity can and should be a foundational principle in our work. Our work as game designers can often feel very paradoxical, creating artificial worlds while we face very real ecological, political, and social crises. It's natural to wonder, what do video games offer amidst rising inequality, climate change, and polarization? Why turn to pixels and speculative worlds to mirror eroding landscapes and societies? On the left is an image of an e-waste market in Calcutta, which we'll come back to later in our talk. On the right is an image of a procedurally generated landscape in Unreal Engine, a powerful game engine that can simulate real-time environments. These images represent the dual nature of our work. On the one hand, we're immersed in a world facing challenges. On the other, we're producing these artificial worlds that imitate and distract. This juxtaposition constantly reminds us of how paradoxical our work can be. However, today we're going to consider a different perspective. But I did want to share this with you because I've been thinking about this question a lot, especially as I prepared this talk. Our process at Antariksha Studio is rooted in a deep respect for diverse and ethical storytelling. We see great potential in games as a medium for cultural discovery, education, and conservation. So despite these questions, we view play and gaming as meaningful catalysts for action, empathy, and cooperation. I'm going to walk you through some of the ways in which we infuse dignity into our practice and how this transforms our work from a seemingly contradictory endeavor into a force for good. Based in Goa in New York, Antariksha is a transmedia collective crafting indie video games, films, installations, and performances with a focus on the multicultural heritage of South Asia. We began as an offshoot of Quicksand Studio, a design consultancy based in India. From our work in the public sector, dealing with problems such as water and sanitation, we knew that storytelling and game design could be leveraged to inform wider audiences about very real, complex issues. Since 2016, we've undertaken various creative projects, including graphic novels, an animated short film, and numerous soundtracks. We've also performed at festivals and concerts worldwide and created a classical electronic dance opera. Lastly, we've been developing an indie adventure video game. While we've been adding all these elements and layers throughout the years, much of our work has been focused on game design. Our vibrant ecosystem deeply influences our designs and narratives. Our base in Mercedes, Goa, is housed in an old villa surrounded by lush fields and coconut palms. Inside, the walls are adorned with mosaics and traces of Portuguese heritage. It serves as a source of inspiration with its landscapes, history, and diverse intersections of gender, caste, religion, language, race, class, geography. All of this provides a rich tapestry that we weave into our games. Our studio acts as an incubator for media art and interdisciplinary collaborations in a semi-rural setting where cultural preservation meets emergent technology. As much as we draw inspiration from the multicultural values, communities, and lived experiences around us, these same elements are increasingly at risk of exploitation and loss. This reality is especially apparent in the context of all these rapid global changes and technological advancements, surveillance, the emergence of smart cities. While the gaming industry's eco-footprint is rarely scrutinized, we recognize that it's inherently extractive, consuming vast amounts of natural resources, labor, time, and energy. While the gaming industry's eco-footprint, this extraction concerns us because it directly impacts the environments and communities we aim to celebrate and preserve through our work. So we realize that our mission has to extend beyond game design, and this means not only creating engaging games, but also being mindful of their broader impact in the world. Now a bit about myself. Like many of you and many of your speakers, I'm also a multi-hyphenate. I'm a creative technologist, media artist, and educator based in New York and with my other foot in Goa. My work involves exploring the intersections of technology, art, and storytelling. And my colleague Avinash Kumar, our founder and director, who is based in Goa, is a media artist and former toy designer. Together, we've been connecting our passions for culture and storytelling between these creative centers of Goa and New York. Our team is a constellation of talent from various backgrounds, including artists, designers, musicians, dancers, programmers, and researchers. And this interdisciplinary approach is at the heart of our studio. My own inspiration and practice are deeply influenced by my lived experiences, ancestors, cultural roots, and an innate curiosity for culture. These interests have remained constant, even as I transition to using new tools and technologies. On the bottom left is a photo of my dad as a young boy with his many siblings in Sangli, Maharashtra. On the right is my mother as a young girl with her mother in their home in Pune, India. Growing up as an Indian American, I had the experience of bridging these two cultures, multiple languages, many homes. Although I never really knew my grandparents since they passed when I was young, these visits, the act of documenting their home, collecting their stories, became a way for me to connect with my past, present, and future. It helped me to explore my history, cultural identity, even bringing a sense of belonging when I didn't feel it. The towering banyan tree in my grandmother's backyard is still growing on the left, even though their home, once a beautiful villa, now stands in ruins. This holds a special place in my heart, reminds me of all these long-standing roots. So in my work, I use storytelling, fiction, dreaming, and a decolonizing approach to reflect these rich cultural narratives, imagining alternative worlds through game aesthetics. And I really love this quote by Adrienne Maree Brown, who's also part of the Deem family. This is from the foreword of Afterglow, Climate Fiction for Future Ancestors, which you can find in the reference room. But yeah, Adrienne and emergent strategy have been deep influences for my work as well. But despite this deep connection to cultural roots, I also grew up surrounded by lots of technologies of illusion. Growing up in the 90s, I have a strong sense of nostalgia for the protagonists and games of that era. Spent countless hours playing on my brother's old Game Boy, taking care of my virtual pets, catching Pokemon, playing point-and-click adventure games like Monkey Island, and trying to find Carmen Sandiego. Like many others during the pandemic, I also found comfort in games and multiplayer games like Animal Crossing, although I look very alone on my island over there. These experiences not only provided entertainment, but also a way to stay connected with others during a time of isolation. And around this time, I was also transitioning from a career in art history towards interaction in game design. So the shift was incredibly exciting for me as it allowed me to explore a new medium and integrate my passions for art and storytelling in innovative ways. And it's really fascinating how these early experiences with gaming have come full circle, influencing my current work and the projects we develop at Untitled Studio. So as we approached our projects at the studio, we did so as rather unconventional creators. We brought together our diverse backgrounds and perspectives. None of us have actually studied game design as like a major. And we started blending art, technology, and cultural storytelling in unique ways in the ways that we knew how. So this approach allowed us to create something truly original and meaningful. In contrast to conventional game narratives, Antariksh Sanchar features a mother-son duo undertaking a cosmic journey on an aircraft fueled by art, music, and dance. The story oscillates between outer space and the landscapes of South India around the 1900s. This dual setting allows players to explore diverse environments and historical contexts. And the plot is loosely adapted from the writings and theorems of the mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan, who devised the theory of infinity and bridges the realms of mathematics and mysticism, dreams and reality. We released a demo of Antariksh Sanchar in 2016. Though not explicitly about climate change, the interactive puzzles and dialogues with figures from the past introduced players to topics in sustainability, including environmental conservation, scientific discovery, and the importance of understanding the natural world. In this game, we wanted to underscore the interconnectedness of art, science, and nature. When we began this project, our goals were ambitious and deeply aligned with our values and lived experiences. We aimed to decolonize game design by challenging the norms of AAA video game authorship, envisioning a space that celebrates diverse voices and perspectives and an industry that does not. With about 41% of gamers in India being women and 66% coming from non-metro areas, it was crucial for our game to reflect this diversity. We sought to develop a non-combat game with progressive themes like pluralism, sustainability, and cultural heritage, breaking away from the traditional violence and combat-focused narratives. Creating immersive environments for cultural discovery and play was essential. Play in itself can be a very liberating tool. We wanted players to explore and appreciate different cultures through interactive spaces. So community collaboration and sustainability were also a major focus. Ultimately, our mission came about designing for dignity, creating games that we wanted to see with characters that we didn't see before, that honor and respect cultural heritage while acknowledging and addressing pressing issues. In 2021, we received a sizable mega grant from Epic Games, which enabled us to iterate and accelerate our designs and workflows towards an upcoming release called Untitled. This grant allowed us to refine and enhance our original demo by iterating on level designs, visual development, while keeping the same story and protagonists. One of the most exciting aspects of this phase was our ability to expand and enrich the game through meaningful community collaborations. By involving local artisans, artists, and cultural experts, we ensured that our game was not only visually stunning, but also deeply rooted in cultural narratives. Designing a video game together became more than just a creative endeavor. It transformed into an act of collective care, authorship, archiving, and resistance. Through this collaborative process, we were able to preserve and celebrate cultural heritage, offer new perspectives, and challenge the homogenizing forces of mainstream game design. Now I'm going to take you a bit behind the scenes and dive into some of our processes, starting with character design. So one of our primary goals is to foster diversity in gaming and entertainment from South Asia, highlighting underrepresented communities and narratives. Our character design process begins with a strong commitment to inclusion, aiming to represent a wide range of ages, genders, religions, sexual orientations, races, occupations, and body types, ensuring our characters and NPCs reflect real-world diversity. Some of our characters are modeled after overlooked historical figures, such as Avvayar, which you see here, who is a 9th century female Tamil poet, and Srinivasa, as I mentioned before, a renowned mathematician, and others are modeled after real people. We've also invested very heavily in reproducing cultural nuances. For instance, developing modular systems for costumes and ornaments, utilizing cloth physics simulations to capture the fluid movement and detailed construction of traditional garments, like saris, for example. So this allows us to sort of represent the intricate drapes and folds and textiles from the region, but also how they move and fit on the body, what they mean to us. And we've also been able to take great care to model more accurate hair, skin, and makeup, which can be problematic in game engines like Unreal Engine. So this meticulous attention to detail helps ensure that our characters visually and culturally resonate with the players. In addition to developing diverse characters, we've also created unique animation identities based on classical South Asian dance forms. Some of our characters' movements and expressions are inspired by Bharatanatyam, a classical Indian dance form known for its rapid neck and eye movements, intricate hand gestures, and complex footwork. Having practiced this dance form for over a decade, I have a very special connection to this part of the project. We collaborated with dancers from different ages to preserve and showcase these traditions, using motion capture technology to record their dance movements, making their animations fluid and lifelike, while also creating a digital archive of these vanishing art forms. So while our goals with these animation identities were to create a visually stunning game, we were also looking at this as a form of cultural preservation, and we hope to incorporate other endangered dance forms, such as Chow and Odissi. So by drawing on the language of dance, we bring these traditions to life in a more engaging way that also represents a sort of challenge to combat-based movement within game designs and game mechanics themselves. Our games also feature unique interaction designs, like dance-based non-combat mechanics, modeled interactions on complex footwork, coordinated hand gestures within the puzzles and movements of these mechanics and interactions themselves. My colleague Avinash's mother, Jayalakshmi Ishwar, is a renowned dancer and choreographer who inspired her protagonist and influenced the dance mechanics. We also developed different musical puzzles that integrate various dance poses and sequences, adding an engaging cultural layer to the gameplay overall. Our environment design process is deeply rooted in decolonizing and creating inclusive, multicultural worlds. We aim to reflect a diverse and harmonious blend of cultures in our game environment, drawing inspiration from our own ecosystems and communities within our world-building process. By incorporating different syncretic styles, we create environments that feel rich and authentic, showcasing the diversity of these cultural and natural elements. So we're committed to building inclusive and multicultural worlds, especially in the face of increasing intolerance, especially in India. As a secular game, we strive to provide safe virtual spaces where players from all backgrounds can feel represented and respected. This approach helps us to create immersive spaces that encourage exploration and also appreciation and empathy and respect for different cultures. A significant part of our work involves site research and fieldwork to bring all the different environmental, cultural elements to life. This process, in some ways, also initiated a sort of grassroots cultural preservation effort. We initially researched traditional homes and architectural sites across South India. So here on the left, you can see some pillars and ornamental details from traditional Tamil Nadu homes. We captured intricate details such as door frames and tiles from a traditional home in Chettinad, a heritage village known for its opulent, decaying mansions from the early 1900s. These findings were integrated into our modular ornamental and material design processes, working closely with our team of artists to ensure authenticity and detail, but also with the stewards of these environments themselves and the stewards of these heritage sites. As part of the EPIC megagrant, we were also able to collaborate with the Dakshina Chitra Museum of Living Heritage in Chennai. This small local museum houses a collection of vernacular objects such as furniture, kitchen items, utensils, and crafts. Basically items that you wouldn't see in other museum collections. We worked closely with the museum staff to identify objects that could be used in our game. And here are some of the objects that we digitized and included. We offered our photogrammetry services, testing automated rapid workflows to help with their museum digitization practices. They're a really small museum without these sorts of technologies available to them there. We also spent time in their archive and library, sharing reference materials with our team. And this made me wonder, could this partnership extend beyond mere prop design to foster grassroots collaborations and increase access to cultural heritage? So while this might seem like a small example, it really set a precedent for us to start thinking about the ways in which we could collaborate meaningfully with other organizations. One of the key areas we're focusing on is ethical photogrammetry. So I'm really interested in this idea of circular design practices for 3D digital heritage assets. Can this process be regenerative rather than extractive? And this involves not just extracting the value, but finding ways to give back to the community and often anonymous artisans who devoted their time and effort to making these creations. For instance, can revenue earned from these assets be redistributed to support local communities, perhaps to mitigate climate disasters or fund community projects? Our assets available on platforms like Sketchfab are part of our commitment to open source and quality curation. However, many poor assets, terrible assets, exist on online marketplaces, And we see a need for better curation, diversity, and more equitable business models. Imagine a business model where revenue from 3D asset marketplaces is directed back to these communities, who are often excluded from this digital pipeline in the first place. So this could create various initiatives to support a more sustainable and equitable system for digital heritage preservation. So in short, we aim to create a model where the creation of 3D assets could benefit everyone involved, from the creators to the communities that inspired these works. In 2022, we received the British Council's India-UK Together grant, which allowed us to explore new models for digital repatriation and heritage sustainability. This grant facilitated our work with collections in the UK, opening pathways for access to heritage, agency, authorship, and the negotiation of power relations. We engaged with various museums, private homes, archives, and collections both in India and the UK. This included drawing from collections such as the British Film Institute and the British Library's Endangered Archive Program, focusing on 19th century Tamil studio photography. Our aim was to develop new models for heritage sustainability that honor both personal and collective identities. By collaborating with these institutions, we sought to ensure that these artifacts can be experienced and appreciated by a wider audience online, either through performative or interactive formats. We also embrace remixing as a methodology, digitizing and integrating cultural artifacts into our game environments. While we started by making high-quality 3D reconstructions of rare instruments from public domain collections, including the Horniman Museum in London, we've transitioned to working with cultural institutions, as I've mentioned in the former slide. But these reconstructions are not just static objects. They're integrated into the gameplay, allowing players to interact with them in meaningful ways, but also learn about them, to contextualize them, to not have them as sort of empty backdrops in a game. And by pairing these artifacts with live music, we create an immersive experience that connects players with different aspects of this heritage. So this approach not only enhances the experience, but in our view, serves as a modern form of cultural preservation, bringing historical artifacts to life and making them more accessible to a global audience online. Being based in India provides ample opportunities to work with the grassroots talent. We collaborated with over 30 orchestral, folk, and tribal musicians to record original Carnatic soundtracks, which comprise our game's audio experience. We adopted ethnographic approaches, integrating the music, stories, and traditions of these musicians into our game design. This involved understanding caste intersections, differences between folk and tribal musicians, and the reasons why certain traditions are dying out. Our work also highlighted urgent concerns such as climate change's impact on musical instruments and musicians' livelihoods, particularly during the pandemic. Natural sounds, like rain, have historically inspired musical instruments, but environmental changes are also now threatening these traditions. Natural sounds such as rain and running water have influenced the development of musical instruments like the tanpura and drums for centuries. So climate change not only affects the material used in these instruments, but it also impacts the sound and the traditions that they represent. This connection between sound and environment underscores nature's importance in the visual and performing arts. And understanding these impacts helps us create a game that is both entertaining but also educational. So I'm going to play a short clip in which you can come with us on our recording trip to Chennai.
हाँ
Lastly, publishing. So with support from an Epic Mega Grant, we've been experimenting with Fortnite using Unreal Engine for Fortnite as a platform for prototypes. And while Fortnite offers a massive player base, making it easier to connect with younger audiences, and it's more quick to produce and publish our experimental prototypes, it's also a very problematic platform. It's important to acknowledge both the pros and cons. So some of the pros are that it's a robust tool for creativity, already has community engagement, and we're able to sort of publish and get our game out there without the affordances that a AAA studio has. As an indie studio, it's much harder, much slower and expensive process to publish your game. But while Fortnite allows us to reach a broad audience and test these concepts, some of the criticisms are that it's addictive and the potential for toxicity and harassment to permeate on the platform. So while this environment can pose lots of challenges for fostering a more inclusive and positive gaming experience, we do still see value in trying to engage younger gamers who may be more into traditional combat games to engage with a culturally themed video game, trying to make Fortnite a better place at the least. By leveraging its strengths, we aim to create content that entertains, educates, and promotes cultural understanding and empathy, even in a platform like Fortnite. The game development landscape in India, also worldwide, is facing many challenges like politicization, technocratic narratives, and the targeting and suppression of ethnic minorities. These are all issues that resonate globally. Since we set out on this path, there's been a very troubling surge of video games with revisionist or nationalist tendencies. And some of these games, such as 5G, which you see on the left, are sponsored by the right-wing government or have celebrity and Bollywood endorsements, which we do not. These games often revolve around violence and territorial disputes, reinforcing conservative positions on ethnic and religious conflicts, human rights suppression, and the censorship of free speech. For instance, the Prime Minister Modi promoted the release of 5G, which stands for Fearless and United Guards, which glorifies the military, after banning the popular Chinese-made game PUBG. Modi's Digital India and Made in India initiatives often co-opt the gaming industry for broader political gains. Recently, Modi met with top Indian gamers, which we were obviously not invited to. But as a small studio, we've managed to stay independent, allowing us to resist some of these forces. And while developers haven't been overtly censored, there's still an undercurrent of caution and fear. And so we've also been moving away from some of the mythology, sort of not wanting to reproduce some of the same ideas that this government is attempting to do. And as the spotlight on this gaming industry increases, we developers feel that we may face more harassment or even self-censorship. But for now, we've been trying to maintain our independence and trying to offer alternatives that challenge the status quo by offering safe digital spaces that spotlight concerns, uplift communities, educate, and inspire. Now, shifting our focus to the future, and I understand that the idea of delving into the future can be exhausting, especially now. Yet, amidst its ambiguity, abstraction, and potential bleakness, it's precisely in these moments of uncertainty that I go back to our work in speculative design and in the capacity to envision and strive towards a different, perhaps better world. William Gibson, a speculative fiction writer and essayist, famously said, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." So a lot of the technological advancements that we imagine the future to be full of are already here. They're just not distributed evenly. equitably at all. So the future is very much here. It's about envisioning ways in which we can make it a more positive one. I want to end by talking about some of the environmental impacts of game development, which is a topic that is often overlooked, seldom discussed, and even within the gaming industry. And I kid you not, while researching this topic, there's one Reddit thread which is very active in discussing this, but there are so many comments defending the gaming industry, saying that there's no changes that need to be made. But I don't agree with that. And it's true that the industry's eco-footprint does include significant power consumption and extractive practices related to CPUs, GPUs, all the graphics, cryptocurrency, NFTs, all of which contribute to carbon emissions. So all of this software and hardware comes at a very real cost to our planet. Now in this image here, this is an e-waste market in Selampur, which is located on the outskirts of New Delhi. And this is one of the largest e-waste markets in India, and also where much of the United States e-waste ends up. Selampur is a bustling hub where thousands of workers dismantle discarded electronics to extract valuable materials. These informal waste collectors in India, known as kabadiwalas, play a crucial role in the recycling chain, but often labor under very hazardous circumstances. So how do we reduce this waste, this cycle of endless consumption, of little to no reuse when it comes to technology? We have been working on making our own practice sustainable, whether that's through optimizing our code, reducing obsolescence so devices can be reused, and making climate action a much more explicit message, sometimes doing a bait and switch in which a game might seem completely escapist, but there's actually very direct messages in there related to our climate, related to politics, related to current culture. Emergent industry guidelines from platforms like Fortnite and organizations such as Playing for the Planet and the International Game Developers Association are beginning to address these issues too. For example, Fortnite has been attempting to reduce its energy consumption, trying to optimize certain code. But while this is a start, we have reason to be skeptical, as it's not in their profit incentive to do this. So we, as designers and consumers, also need to demand these changes. So in summary, how do we bridge this gap between the real and the virtual? Our process embodies this commitment, and most importantly, is imbued with lots of care. We've set very ambitious goals, challenging traditional video game norms, fostering diversity, and creating immersive environments for cultural discovery. Ultimately, we aim to make games that educate, inspire, and promote these changes through deep ethnographic research, ethical photogrammetry, and collaboration with our local communities. By integrating these cultural narratives and sustainable practices into game design, we ensure that these games reflect and respect our diversity. So overall, this journey is about transforming game design into a tool for good, focusing on cultural preservation, diversity, and sustainability. And I want to sort of wrap up with this quote by Ursula K. Le Guin. In case you can't tell, I really love speculative fiction writers. My imagination makes me human and makes me a fool. It gives me all the world and exiles me from it. And I felt like, to go back to my paradox, to go back to my burning question, this quote gave me some peace. Going back to this paradox, reflecting on this relationship between technology and humanity, video games as technologies of illusion do offer ways to enhance our understanding of the world and our place within it. They can serve as very powerful tools for cooperation, to explore complex issues, to foster empathy, and inspire action. However, as Le Guin notes, our imagination can also exile us or estrange us. And this quote highlights that dual power of imagination. It can both illuminate and alienate, but it's important to resist the alienation, the isolation, the exile. And in my work, in our work, we strive to harness the illuminating power of imagination. So our journey is about leveraging this power to create games that not only entertain, but also uplift. Thank you. Cool. Thank you, folks. Thank you so much for listening and sharing this space with me.